program as you view it. Episode 457. You know, Bell K likes to title these things. I never have any idea when I ask, but I always ask, Bell, what's the title today?
The weed industry is on the verge of collapse. Matt Murphy Show has the story. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3. Gummy entrees today.
It's true. So we were breaking this news just before we came on air today. For those just tuning in to the Libertarian Lunch, this is a huge moment in cultural history as Snoop Dogg has announced within the hour. I mean, it was an hour ago or thereabouts. Snoop Dogg, you know Snoop Dogg, also known as Snoop Doggy Dogg. Snoop Dogg is giving up smoke, making this announcement on the platform formerly known as Twitter, now known as X. After much consideration, I mean, I'm not making this up. I don't know why he would make it up. Some people are suggesting that this is a ruse. I don't know what kind of ruse it would be. It's not April 1st. Snoop Dogg, I'm giving up smoke. There's a photograph of him with his hands in front of his mouth, seemingly in prayer. After much consideration and conversation with my family, I've decided to give up smoke. Please respect my privacy at this time. Do you feel like this is a joke, or is this this feels like a setup for him to begin selling gummies?
It's either that or he and his wife had to come to Jesus, and she said this ends.
I mean, would she say that? All right, first off, there's a number of assumptions that. Are you assuming that he's married, or do you know?
He is.
He is married.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's got like 4 kids.
Did not in some way marijuana like give himself a really good life? I mean, I understand that he's. I mean, he has crossed cultural boundaries that no one would have anticipated 30 years ago. A lot of that had to do with his marijuana use, right?
In what
is he famous in part because of his marijuana use or in spite of his marijuana use? I would argue he's famous in. It's not all of it, but it's some of it because of his marijuana.
Yeah, I would say that's a sliver of it, but it's mostly, you know.
I mean, he is a talented
famous
guy.
For being, you know, Snoop and being. I mean, he's sold multiple millions of records.
I don't know that the average person separates Snoop from marijuana at all. I mean, I think when you think of Snoop, you think, well, that guy smokes some weed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and whatever. I mean, you think, I guess, the same thing about Willie Nelson later on in his life, in his career.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie has had songs, homages written to him about his marijuana smoking. Although Willie quit, too. Willie does inhalers now, it's my understanding. You know, because when you get to 90.
Yeah, actually, that's, yeah.
You got to worry about those lungs.
Yeah, the last 50 years of smoking pot didn't do him any favors in the health department. Probably.
I mean, the super text line is up and running, and already people are weighing in, and they're saying it's 100% because Snoop is a dope guy. Why he has carried over. I mean, I'm fascinated with his ability to parlay his fame in the rap community into broader fame in the community at large. I mean, he's friends with Martha Stewart, for goodness sake.
Yeah, he is one of the most effective rappers at having turned himself into a brand.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a rapper anymore. He is a brand.
And I think that brand has a lot to do with his marijuana use.
I would agree that there's certainly that element there.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not coming on the air and saying that this is a mistake. That's good for him. I mean, anytime that you feel like you need to step away from those types of things, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he's being truthful, I just have
him if you got him, and if you don't.
You know, and I just have a feeling that what we're dealing with here is a setup where he's going to start selling some sort of alternative.
He already does
product.
That. He already has his own brand of edibles.
I mean, if you thought of, I mean, not that. I'm willing to get into this. I mean, frankly, some of the news items that we're going to cover today leave a little bit to be desired. I mean, what else is there to say about Joe Biden bending over for the Chinese president, for goodness sake? But, well, I mean, when you think of like marijuana use, marijuana smokers, you think Cheech and Chong, right?
Yeah.
Snoop.
And Willie.
And Willie.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Maybe a distant fourth would be Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure.
Distant fourth.
And then, somewhere down there, Woody Harrelson has been an advocate.
Yeah.
Over the years. But those are the big, and really, frankly, in 2023, it's Willie and Snoop even more so than Cheech and Chong. I just think of Cheech and Chong because regularly on my X platform or Twitter platform, I see advertisements for their edibles.
Yeah.
They're selling pretty hot and heavy on the
pretty regular
on the social media. Anyway, lots to get into today. None of it really has to do with Snoop Dogg. But if you have thoughts on Snoop, by all means. Oh, Jim Belushi is another one. Jim Belushi has a show now that I wasn't aware of until my wife made me aware of it, where he has a pot farm somewhere out west now, and he does a show about his pot farm.
I don't think you can understate the economic impact this is going to have on that industry, and this could ripple into a full-blown 1970s style recession because of it.
I wonder what the actual figures are for states that have legalized marijuana, what the numbers are that come in, like Colorado, for example. I understand that it has a negative impact and negative effect too. I just wonder. It's
I did read a story where California taxes it so heavily that it caused the black market to grow. Instead of cutting into the black market, it increased the black market because of the taxes.
Because they went a step or two too far.
Well, it's California. If you're not taxing it into oblivion, you're not in California.
Well, and it's not like it's difficult to make. If you have the right growing environment, you just need to let nature happen. It's not like making alcohol, right? I mean, that's a process that takes a little expertise. So if you decide to go off the grid and make some black market hooch or moonshine, that's going to take a level of understanding as to how that process works, right? For marijuana, you just need a grow light and, time.
Well, and actually, you don't even need a grow light if you're planting it in the right environment. You can just go stick it out in between your corn plants.
I mean, not that I'm not an expert. I don't think you're an expert, but I know more than some. I'm uncomfortable on television today because of the shirt that I decided to wear. And I'll tell you why, because this shirt it pops up, and I feel like a tool when it pops up like this. You know what I mean?
A tool?
Yeah, like
Why?
a toolbox. I just do.
I think you look fine.
Do I look okay?
Yeah.
I don't look like a tool right now?
No. Well, it's certainly not for that reason.
Yeah, I'll just keep setting them up. You just keep knocking them out. All right. Well, before you know it, you'll think I'm a tool. Trust me. Give me enough time, and I'll say something that you disagree with. I want to, before I lose it, I want to thank our sister station, brother station, if you will, 104.5 The Zone. Buck Rising had me on earlier today in advance of the Georgia-Tennessee contest. He wanted to find the biggest Georgia fan in Nashville, Tennessee, and he found him right over here at the sister station, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It was nice of him to allow me to come in, and I appreciate being able to present my robust defense of my beloved Georgia Bulldogs to the Tennessee faithful. We will not do a lot of that on our show, maybe a little bit tomorrow. Mac Morey and I will get into it a little bit in the 2 o'clock hour tomorrow. As far as things go today, we've been so guest-heavy in the first half of the week. We have had congressmen on. We've had various politicians. We had the Senate Majority Leader. We've had the House of Representatives on twice in less than a week, or the Speaker of the House of Representatives on twice in less than a week. We had an internationally famous entertainer in Pat Boone yesterday in studio for an hour. We had a leftist commentator, Justin Canoe, who shall not be called a socialist, according to him. He was on earlier in the week.
I didn't agree to that.
I don't agree with that either, but, whatever. Okay. So we decided to intentionally go guest-free today. You have an opportunity to speak truth to power about anything that we've spoken of over the past week or so, or anything on your minds. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. We start here. Nashville, Tennessee. Dateline. Nashville Metro Police have released a new data that shows roughly half of the people they arrested this year had recently been charged with other crimes. Police data showing, and this is from News Channel 5, their report on the story, hat tip, because we give credit, even though a lot of times they won't. Police data shows 40% of the more than 17,742 people arrested through the end of September 2023 were on bond for other offenses or in some sort of pretrial release status. So that equals 3,770 people being released on bond, 3,300 people who went through pretrial release. One wonders if the Metro District Attorney, Glenn Funk, is willing to answer some of these questions that these statistics raise about how he is engaging in his business with regard to allowing people back on the street after they commit very serious crimes. Why do I bring this up? Well, if you've listened over the last week and a half, you know why. I bring it up because I want justice for Jillian Ludwig. And it goes above and beyond getting justice in the form of a conviction of Shaquille Taylor. There remain questions about why the hell Shaquille Taylor was on the street. And we've got a big clue as to why that was with these crime statistics. While the Speaker of the House, Cameron Sexton, who was on our show yesterday, and I held his feet to the fire about whether or not he was being fully transparent or honest with regard to legislation that he says could have kept Shaquille Taylor off the streets, they were nowhere near passing that legislation in the House, much less the Senate. Instead of pointing the finger where I think it needs to start, and that is with the district attorney in this community, because other counties don't seem to have this trouble. Now, I understand Nashville's big. Nashville's bigger than most, bigger than every one of them, as a matter of fact. Shelby County and Memphis, a close second. Then comes Knoxville and some of the other larger communities in our state. The numbers are astounding. 3,770 people released on bond and 3,300 people who went through pretrial release were arrested again for additional crimes in this community. That accounts for 40% of all of the arrests through the end of September 2023 this year. Indicating to me that the DA is, in fact, soft on crime. Michael Patrick Leahy said he coddled criminals. And now a woman is dead. An 18-year-old woman is dead. And we're not going to obviously look over the fact that the central person to blame is the individual that was willing to pull that trigger. Instead, we jump ahead of the story, and all these folks out there on the left want to blame gun control and the lack thereof in the city of Nashville and in the state of Tennessee. And none of them have any idea how this guy got his gun. I don't. Have you heard this? I looked. Have I missed it? Someone tell me I missed it. How did Shaquille Taylor get a gun? Shaquille Taylor did not walk into a gun store and buy a gun. Not to my knowledge. Almost half of the individuals committing crime in 2023 had been previously arrested for other crimes prior to the commission of subsequent crimes.
They have the gun that he used, correct?
I don't know.
Because if they had it, it seems like all they would have to do is check and see if it was stolen or not, or if he owned it. Or
I did sleuthing this morning, and I was interrupted on a couple of occasions. I'm not faulting that, but I was trying to find the origins of the gun today, and I couldn't find it. If someone else has heard, please let me know. 615-737-9986. A lot of my friends on the political left want to simply point to that and go, how did he get a gun? I don't know. How did he get a gun? Was it stolen? Was it bought on the black market? Does the district attorney need to do a better job on prosecuting black market gun sale crimes? Folks, we've got a DA problem in this community, and it's time that we talked about it. And I'm not going to let this go. I'm not going to let the death of Jillian Ludwig go. It would be easier to do because she's not from our community. She came here to go to college, but I think that makes it more important than ever that we hang on to this. Friends and family are gathering in New Jersey today to remember the life of 18-year-old Belmont University freshman Jillian Ludwig. Visitation held tonight, funeral services and internment to follow at 9:30 tomorrow morning, according to an obituary published by her family and the attending funeral home. Obviously, we know how she died. And I will continue to ask why. Even if that makes some folks uncomfortable. Yesterday, Cameron Sexton doubled down on his assertion that if the Senate had taken the special session more seriously, they may have been able to do something about this issue of allowing an individual who is incompetent to stand trial out as opposed to putting him in a psych ward somewhere. We held Cameron's feet to the fire. As he stated, originally he said that they passed legislation. Then he backed off on that and said they presented legislation. Now he's backed off on that and said, well, it got through committee, but it needed to be further amended, something that can't happen once it reaches the floor. It's my understanding. In the meantime, the Senate has consistently said that they felt like their job was to do what the governor called them there to do, and that was it. And that they would take up consideration of other bills during the normal process in the General Assembly in January. In the meantime, an 18-year-old woman is dead. I've asked the question and have not gotten an adequate answer. What holds Shaquille Taylor in jail right now? Serious question. Oh, well, Matt, this is a serious charge. He was charged with serious things in April. He was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He was charged with shooting into a car. Same thing, right? And they let him go. They let him go. The DA didn't appeal when he had the opportunity to appeal. The judge in this case said, no, I don't think he's a danger to himself or to other people. I want to know who these doctors are that make these decisions. Why don't we find the names of these doctors? Why can we not speak to these doctors about their process? Why are they immune from criticism in all of this? A woman is dead as a result of their decision-making. They're the ones that said that this man was not a danger to himself or other people. They're the ones that recommended that he be allowed out of jail. And I want to know who they are. I'm not going to come after them. I just want to question them. Don't you? A woman is dead. A woman is dead. And the damn DA doesn't seem to care. He's too worried CYAing, covering his own rump. I got to go. I know. 12:25. I'm on a rant. I got on a toot there. My apologies. I'll calm down, and we'll talk to you next on Super Talk. Don't you do it, you jerk. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, a quick segment. I ran a little bit long in the opening monologue. My apologies for that. And we'll get to your calls, Billy and John, Brian and Joe. A couple of lines available for you if you want to opine on the subject matter at hand. A subject that I'm not going to let go of quite yet. 615-737-9986. What bothers me more than anything, and I want to lay the picture for you. I want to paint the picture for you. I think we need to get to an emotional place on this story where it angers us. You have an 18-year-old woman that came from New Jersey to study music business at Belmont University. She had only been in Nashville for a few months. Can you imagine how exciting it was for her? Can you imagine how excited she was? Being in the music business, or wanting to be in the music business, wanting to study music business in school, being accepted to Belmont, the cradle of the music industry, particularly country music, Music City, USA. She laid in a park for an hour after she was shot in the head. It's the aspect of this story that bothers me more than any. An 18-year-old girl with her life ahead of her died alone, unnoticed. And I want answers for her and for her family and for our community. And I want accountability for those who allowed a system to fester that continues to allow individuals who are dangerous to our community out on the street. 1233, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We're all looking for a good podcast, right? Those of us who enjoy a podcast in the evening time or on the weekends or whatnot. If you're not listening to Super Talk 99.7 WTN, I would encourage you to listen to my friend Steve Abramowitz in the Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast. He has artists on, authors, cultural touchstones, entertainment figures, sports figures, and political newsmakers as well. Oftentimes, they're the number one show in politics on Podomatic, but they do so much more than that. They're found on a variety of platforms to include, I've never been on Deezer. I'd like to be on Deezer. iTunes, I've been there. iHeart, Spotify, all of your favorite podcast apps has Steve and his team at the Mill Creek View, Tennessee podcast. And if you can't get enough from Mill Creek View, Tennessee, they've got other platforms available for you. You can find out more about that at mcview.us. That's MC, that stands for Mill Creek, mcview.us. Steve is also editor and in-chief and CEO of the Mill Creek View newspaper, found at that website, and you can also find the podcast link right there. The Tennessean has described him as a conservative advocacy podcast. I would describe him as a good friend and a good neighbor to have in Franklin, Tennessee. It's the Mill Creek View Tennessee podcast. Find them at mcview.us. As promised, I'll get to you on the phones next. Supertalk 99.7 WTN. It is the Libertarian Lunch. Matt Murphy Show. Glad to be with you until 3 o'clock. Coming up at 3, The Drive with Brian Wilson. Of course, information-fueled and opinion-driven news talk radio for the masses on Supertalk. We'll get into Joe Biden and China coming up in hour number 2. Protesters in Washington, D.C. Hey, man, that's free speech. That's freedom of assembly. That's not an insurrection. Of course, that's what they would say if the mainstream media covered this at all. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. I'll feed you baby birds. And more on the process by which Shaquille Taylor was deemed to not be. I don't understand how you can have it both ways, where you deem him incompetent and unable to understand the charges against him to the point that he can mount a personal defense, yet at the same time you deem him not to be a threat to other people, despite the fact that the crimes that he was accused of committing were direct threats to other people. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. He shot into a car. But I'll deal with that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Billy is first up in Nashville. Billy, thank you for your call. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir. And what I wanted to talk to you about is two things. First off, over there, it's been open less than 3 weeks. That new mall over there next to the old mall that they basically put lipstick on a pig and called it Global Mall. It used to be one of the nicest malls in Nashville. The people that put Tanger there did not look into the background of that area to see all the crime and everything in that area. And so now they're going to suffer, and that mall will probably be gone in 15 years, just like the first one. And then the second thing I'd like to say is myself, my wife, both my daughters and son-in-law all believe in very, very strict gun control laws. We're all concealed carry, and we're all have enough control to hit our targets.
Amen. I love that. Billy, I'm not that familiar with the Tangers Mall. I'll need to do a little background check on that and catch up to speed with what it was beforehand. And I guess it opened in October, less than a month ago. And it is in an area of town that is known. I mean, Antioch is known for crime. No question about that. Ribbon cutting was last month with the Tanger Outlets CEO Stephen Yaloff. Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell was there. Freddie O'Connell's going to be, by the way, Bell, have I told you? Bell K behind the glass. He's not on the TV, but he's paying rapt attention to everything going on in this show, screening your telephone calls, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know that I said hello to you even as you introduced the show. Hello.
Hello.
Freddie O'Connell coming on the show again.
When?
Week after Thanksgiving.
Man, you got to respect a man that'll come in and actually answer the hard questions more than once.
You know, we'll see. We'll see. So he's
that's going to be his third appearance?
Yeah.
Fourth?
First time as mayor. Well, I guess.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he had been elected. He came on right after his election.
Mayor-elect, yes.
Yeah, he was mayor-elect. So first time as actual mayor of the city of Nashville, the 10th mayor of Nashville. So we will collect questions from the listening audience, obviously, in advance of our conversation with Freddie O'Connell. And maybe, if he's willing, we'll take a few of those questions live. Let's talk with Steve. Oh, is this our good friend Steve Abramowitz with Mill Creek View? I was just talking about you, Steve. I was saying nice things about you. I hope you heard me.
I did. While I was on hold, I said, oh, my gosh, that is Matt saying nice things. Who paid him off?
Technically, you did, I think. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I would not say nice things if I did not mean them. But obviously, this is a conversation about more serious matters. You're calling in about this young girl's death. What's your take on this, Steve?
This was my whole mantra for 140 shows and 40 shows in Washington State is don't California your Tennessee, don't Washington State your Tennessee, don't L.A. your Nashville. This is the story right here. This is how the whole mayor's race, and before she even ran for mayor, I didn't care about her premonitions. I didn't care about whether God talked to her. I wanted to know, why are they not telling us what kind of person was behind the assassinations of innocent people? What kind of person would be let out of jail 66 times or whatever it was that could shoot this poor girl, Jillian? And if I'm not mistaken, I think her funeral stuff starts today.
Yeah, it's tonight with a viewing and a burial and internment tomorrow morning, yeah.
Terrible, right? I mean, totally unnecessary, totally could have a wonderful life cut short for no reason because jail reform.
And everyone's pointing fingers at everyone else, and I'm sick of it.
There's one person to point the finger at. Well, there's a societal problem, of course, that they hand out these psychotic drugs hand over fist to anybody who wants them, and can create a psychotic. And then, of course, there's letting people out of jail, not doing the crime, because like California and Washington State, these crazy, disguised as a libertarian, yet actually progressive Democrats that think all crime is no crime. Everyone can be high. Everybody can insult everybody. Everybody can storm the DNC and break City Hall like in Madison, Wisconsin, leads to this. And that poor girl for an hour laying in a park in Nashville, the greatest place on earth, besides Disneyland, and it could have been avoided. And so when Cameron Sexton says something like, oh, we tried. No, you didn't. We know. We watched. We saw it all. We know the whole kabuki theater that was going on here. It just, until they start putting the criminals away and hiring police officers, getting their morale up by giving them good wages and telling them that they can actually do their job and enforce the law, they're going to look just like San Francisco. The only difference is it doesn't smell as bad yet. It will if they keep doing what they've been doing. And this is a Republican state, not a far-left Gavin Newsom state, but they're acting like it.
Well, and it fascinates me, Steve, the decision-making, and I will applaud Cameron for his willingness to come on the show and face the questions. He came on again yesterday. I reviewed that conversation because sometimes when you're in the midst of the conversation, you want to know, did I ask all of the questions I should have asked? You know how this goes. So I reviewed the conversation, and it angered me because at first he said, hey, we did our part. We passed what we needed to pass. The Senate wasn't doing anything. Well, then on further review, we learned that wasn't true, that the bill that he was referencing never got out of committee, and the bill as written in committee wouldn't have done anything about this. And so when you question him, we were going to amend it, but there wasn't any reason to do so because the Senate had already said that they weren't taking up the bill. And then as I was listening to this again last night, I remembered that the Senate had to sit there as long as the House was in session, right? It's the rules of the body that one can't leave if the other doesn't gavel out. And I thought, wait a minute.
Janice Bowling tried to get it kicked out. Janice Bowling tried to have the whole thing, dismissed day one, and they said, no, we're going to do this. Okay, why? For what purpose? It's not going to bring back the 6 kids from Covenant.
Well, the thing that struck me is if he wants to use this hindsight to suggest that he had an awareness of what they could do with that legislation, and I just think it's bunk. I think we're focused on the wrong people in terms of blame. We ought to be focused on D.A. Funk. We ought to be focused on the lackluster performance by the district attorney in this community and the judges that are allowing individuals who are a danger to our community back out on the streets.
That's my point. That's what Californication is. That's what Don't Washington State Your Tennessee is. That's exactly right. All of these appointed positions, because nobody knows who they vote for when it's a judge, that get in there and say, you're just stealing to feed your family. Go ahead and go back out on the street. That's what this leads to. The only problem is this has only happened a couple times here. It happens every day over there. It can happen a lot more often here if you act like that. And you one of your favorite movies is the Burt Reynolds, Dolly Parton movie, Best Little House in Texas. Remember the song, Do a Little Two-Step?
A little dance, a little sidestep. Now you see me, now you don't. I've come and gone. And, I know.
And not only that, but if you look on Twitter, you can see Mr. Jones trying to hijack Mr. Ogles coming off an airplane doing exactly that. So the two of those, the Sexton and Jones, who I think in about a month and a half from now are going to be back in session together, and they get to, play their little TV games and Twitter games, they'll be doing some two-steps.
Great call, as always, Steve. Great interaction. Steve Abramowitz with Mill Creek View weighing in his thoughts on this situation, and he reflected on it, and I go back to it. I get angry, and I want answers when I think about an 18-year-old girl who had her entire life, how excited she must have been to come to this city. How excited she must have been to get in the middle of it all. And she lay in a park dying. She did not die until later, obviously. She was still alive when found. but she laid in the park for an hour. An hour. The suspect in the case, Taylor, has admitted to firing the shots and claimed to authorities, according to the Tennessean, that he gave the gun to another person. So they do not have the gun, Bell, in the case. However, my friends, quote unquote, on the political left want to suggest to you that this is a byproduct of a lack of gun control laws or a lack of red flag laws when they can't possibly know that. I would suggest that it's a soft on crime approach from the district attorney. We need to put them in jail and keep them in jail. And if that means we need more jails, that's fine. I'll make that case for you. You politicians, if you need a mouthpiece to make the case that we need to spend more money building more jails, I'm your huckleberry. I'm your boy. I'm happy to do it. Because bad people willing to do bad things to good people need to be behind bars. John is next. Hey, John. Glad you called. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, John. Thank you.
Hey, Matt, I'm going to hang up and listen to you whenever I ask this question. It's kind of a statement as well. A friend of ours and ourselves have had DCHS called on us about a child that we had, our daughter. And another couple's had the same problem because same woman has done called 9 different times on us. False accusations, all of them. And even the guy from DCHS said it was as well. But they still have to come out here, and then they go to the school and talk to our daughter, which we don't have nothing to hide. But it kind of makes us look bad, if that makes any sense what I'm saying. They ought to have something that they can do to people that make false accusations over and over again. But the sheriff's department says their hands are tied. So, what do you do?
So if I'm a little confused about your question. When you say DCA, I mean, you mean Department of Children's Services, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And explain to me again, because I think I missed it. They're questioning your daughter?
Yeah, they questioned our daughter up at the school without even notifying us, which is okay because we don't have anything to hide.
How old is your daughter?
4.
4?
Yeah.
They questioned her, what, on a suspicion that she was being abused?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and what happened after that? Did they question you guys?
Oh, yeah, they come to the house, walk through the house, running water, want to make sure everything's good. But they've been here 8 times because this woman keeps calling and making false accusations because she don't like us. And another family down the road's going through the same thing. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So you feel like it has reached the level of, I mean, inquiry is one thing, but you think they're harassing you now?
Yes, sir.
John, what I'd like to do, because I can't get to the bottom of it now, but I'm going to be doing a deeper dive along with my friend Cameron Smith on the Department of Children's Services and these whistleblowers that have come forward. I don't know if you've seen that story.
Yes, sir.
And and I would love to get, and I won't share it with anybody, but I'm going to put John on hold, get his name and telephone number, because I would like to include him potentially in a conversation with Cameron Smith about the broader story of DCS and whether or not they are focused on the wrong things. It occurs to me that some stuff gets swept under the rug and other things that could be easily adjudicated, like John's situation, as he described it to me, they just keep hammering and hammering and hammering. It's just an odd set of circumstances. We'll get to each of you momentarily. It is 12:51, an interactive edition of the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Stand by. All right, friends, the Dr. Gill Center says they're here for you. What are you waiting on? Don't be pained during the holidays. Don't let your back hurt during the holidays. Don't let your knees hurt during the holidays. You got a lot of activity going on, right? Probably have some family and friends coming over, probably going to holiday parties and events and gatherings. What if I told you that these parties could be pain-free? What if I told you that pain-free nature of the parties could be without pills, could be without the need for a needle, to alleviate pain, and certainly without the consideration for surgery? It's all possible with the Dr. Gill Center. Not just chiropractic care, although they specialize in it. They also do plenty of soft tissue care as well. Elbow pain, hip pain, knee pain, neck pain, back pain, any pain emanating from your body. They have a way to alleviate said pain by reducing inflammation within the body, reducing pain by reducing swelling in the body, and accelerating healing. That's what it's all about at the Dr. Gill Center. When you call them, and I'm about to give you a number, say the words pain relief and say my name, Matt Murphy. Matt Murphy, pain relief. And you will get a special discount on your initial consultation to the Dr. Gill Center for back, neck, and chronic pain relief. 615-882-4838, 882-4838. I encourage you to call today. It's the Dr. Gill Center for back, neck, and chronic pain relief in Franklin. 1258 Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Not enough time to give adequate time to one of you on the phones, but many of you want to speak on the Ludwig shooting, and some of you want to talk about the situation involving the whistleblowers at DCS, the Department of Children Services. Several of you responding online as well, and I'm inquiring. Well, we're following up on a couple of leads based on some communication that we've had with folks that say that they used to work for DCS, and giving some good advice to the caller who said that he's had repeated visits to the point of harassment. Just stop cooperating with them is what one person said. And by the way, speaking of cooperation, thanks for telling me you're going on vacation week after next, Bell. Appreciate that.
How did you find out?
You just told me.
There you go.
Yeah, but I had to pry it out of you. Pry your vacation out of your cold, dead hands. 2 more hours to go. Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Hang in there.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Embattled Congressman George Santos, already facing more than 20 federal counts, including fraud and identity theft, now facing another expulsion vote in the House. That after the release of the House Ethics Report looking into his campaign finances. ABC's Stephen Portnoy has more.
The report alleges George Santos blatantly stole from his campaign, spending thousands on purchases at Ferragamo and Hermes stores, Botox and spa treatments, a weekend in the Hamptons, and even charges on the adult website OnlyFans. Even as he calls the report biased, Santos says in its aftermath that he won't run for re-election. The chairman of the House Ethics Committee says he'll personally move for Santos's expulsion, teeing up a vote on the House floor after the Thanksgiving break.
In Chicago, at least 38 people were injured after a CTA train collided with a plow train on the city's north side today. Authorities say nearly a dozen were taken to the hospital. An investigation into what caused that collision underway. Israeli forces still continuing operations in areas of the Al-Shifa medical complex in Gaza, claiming it's found underground facilities it says Hamas uses as command centers.
The Israeli army says it found more than a dozen automatic rifles, piles of ammunition, several live grenades, and computers in one section of the Al-Shifa hospital complex. Pictures and unseen videos of some of the hostages found on one computer. IDF spokesman Yonatan Conricus calling the items clear evidence Hamas uses the hospital for military purposes. Jordana Miller, ABC News, Jerusalem.
For the second straight year, the U.S. received a D+ on its preterm birth rate. That report by the nonprofit March of Dimes says America remains, quote, the most dangerous developed nations for childbirth. The U.S. preterm birth rate is 10.4%. The March of Dimes says racial disparities also found, saying Black and American Indian and Alaskan Native women are 54% more likely to have a preterm birth compared to white women. You're listening to ABC News.
I want to talk to you for a moment about your health plan and yourhealthplanman.com. If you pay for your own health insurance and you're looking for coverage, maybe you're in open enrollment right now, don't go online to look for this because you will be inundated with endless calls and emails and texts, and they will not stop. Instead, I want you to call my guy, Pat Davis. He is my concierge when it comes to health care with Your Health Plan Man. Your Health Plan Man team of experts with over 25 years of combined experience can provide incredible advice for your health insurance needs. They shop around. They're not bound to one company or another. They have multiple companies that they shop from. Their freedom of choice plan allows you to pick your doctors, and it's 30 to 60% lower than the cost of Obamacare. The monthly premiums are independent of your income, so there are no surprise bills. I know that I'm talking with Pat about my wife and her health insurance coverage in the new year, and I encourage you to talk with him about your coverage or the coverage of your spouse or your family. Go to yourhealthplanman.com. That's yourhealthplanman.com. They will design a plan that is managed by you, not by the government, and that's important. yourhealthplanman.com or call 855-4PLAN-MAN, 855-475-2662 for yourhealthplanman.com. It is 1:05. Hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show starts right now, this Thursday edition, November 16th. We never call it Friday Eve because every time you say Friday Eve, a puppy dies. No, that's not me begging you to do that. That's me saying that we don't do that. Dan Mandis actually told me today, I was having a conversation with our own Dan Mandis. I call him Boss Man Dandis. Boss Man Dandis. We were talking, Nashville's morning news. You hear him every morning, 5 to 9. He actually said that he doesn't say Friday Eve anymore.
Why?
Well,
you got tired of the puppies?
He said, I don't say it anymore.
Why not?
And I'm like, you're lying. I hear your show certainly embraces the god-awful, hell-bound phrase, Friday Eve.
Well, he you know what? That's our phrase. He's not allowed to use it anymore.
It is not.
It's ours.
No.
That is a Matt Murphy Show exclusive phrase. It's not to be used on any other show on this station.
In unrelated news, there's a new position opening at Supertalk 99.7 WT. If you've ever wanted to be berated by a loudmouth, big ego talk show host on a daily basis from noon until 3, contact me, care of this radio station. More calls coming up. Obviously, the first hour, the conversation led to Jillian Ludwig. I'm not going to let this go. I want answers. I do believe the DA is responsible in part for a lot of this, and I'm as frustrated as anyone. I'm frustrated that someone came to our community, a community that I've learned to love over the last 2 years. I'm almost 2 years in, right? I'm almost 2 years in.
December 13th.
December 13th was our first day. I think I already knew at this point that I was going to get the gig. I couldn't say anything about it, but I already knew in advance of it was a nice little Thanksgiving present. When was it that you and I met in Hendersonville at the Waffle House?
It was like a November 8th, I think.
It was right around now, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, who is this long-haired hippie freak eating eggs and bacon?
He sent me a text going, is that you that I'm staring at? Or do I need to go apologize to that guy?
Oh, yeah. Well, you told me what you looked like, and I kind of thought, well, that basically fits the description. Let's find out together.
Except this guy's really unattractive.
Yeah, he said he was good looking. That can't be him. This guy's not good looking at all.
I remember it was like from the time I found out that you were getting hired, I think it was like 6 weeks to 2 months. And I kept asking, well, when's he starting? When's he starting? We don't know.
It was, not to belabor this because I don't know how interesting this is to the audience, but I will say this. I learned, because, most of you longtime listeners, unless you're newbies, you know this story, but it was a sad occurrence that led to me coming to Nashville because we lost Uncle Phil Valentine. And in that process, obviously, I communicated with Dan and started those conversations, after we learned of Phil's passing. And I learned an important lesson that it is easier to get fired and hired than it is to transfer within a company to a different position.
Was it really that difficult?
Well, I'm not even faulting anyone. Everyone wanted to play nice with everyone else. Like I had a great, I had a great position in Birmingham. I was the program director of the radio station down in Birmingham. I wanted a change. It was good timing for a change, and I wanted.
Our boss didn't want to put your boss in a bind.
Right. We'll give you all the time that you need. Oh, you need another way. You need this. You need that. Oh, just let us know what you need. And everybody's being nice to everyone else. To the point that it got to a point. Bell, the conversation started like in September.
Yeah.
And it got to a point, I'm like, do I just need to quit and get rehired? They said, no. I don't think that would go well at this stage of the proceeding. Anyway, it's been a heck of a 2 years, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I certainly have as well. Not a very enjoyable conversation, this discussion regarding Jillian Ludwig, Belmont University student, 18 years of age, slain at the hands of Shaquille Taylor. He is ultimately responsible for this, but there is more responsibility to go around. Real quick, I want to run this down, and then we'll get back to your calls. Shaquille Taylor was charged with robbery in 2015 and found guilty of a lesser charge of assault, according to court records. He was sentenced to 11 months and 29 days in jail. In 2016, he was arrested on aggravated burglary charges before being convicted of a lesser charge of contributing to the delinquency of a minor. So, first and foremost, all of you folks that are arguing that, how did he get a gun? This is ridiculous. He shouldn't have had access to a gun. I don't know that he could have legally acquired a gun, period. But most certainly, if you don't plea these deals down to misdemeanors and you keep them as felonies, as you should if you're the DA in this community, then he doesn't have access to a gun because he's guilty of a felony. And that precludes you from legally buying a gun. He was Taylor, arrested in September of this year in a grocery store parking lot outside of a vehicle that had been, or inside inside a vehicle that had been carjacked by two men wearing ski masks. Taylor denies, or at least did not admit involvement in that carjacking, but was charged with felony auto theft and released on a $20,000 bond, according to court records, which also show that he failed to make a court appearance scheduled for November 3rd. That failure to appear warrant was issued for his arrest. Before the September incident, Taylor had been released from police custody May 19th after 3 court-appointed doctors unanimously testified he was incompetent to stand trial for assault with a deadly weapon. Taylor could have been committed to a mental health facility, but was not because, according to these doctors, he did not meet the state standards for involuntary commitment. To be involuntarily committed, a person must be found by 2 doctors to suffer from mental illness that causes a person to be a substantial risk or serious harm to themselves or others. There must, quote, also be no other less restrictive measures than commitment. Now, once we get to a few of your telephone calls, I'll tell you what Dr. Jenny Matai, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Dr. Jenny Matai, or it might be a guy, I don't know, Matthai, Matai, who is a psychological director of the Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Dr. Matai, once again, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. You tell me if there's some other pronunciation, was one of the doctors who evaluated Taylor and said in her January 5th report that he did not possess competence due to his intellectual disability and language impairment. So Dr. Matai concluded that Taylor only minimally met the requirement for foundation competency in her opinion. I'll get into more of this in a moment. In the meantime, the DA shares a brunt of this blame for being I'm sorry, folks. The district attorney's got a lot of excuses that he's making about all of this. I don't want to hear excuses. I want to hear how we're going to solve this. You tell me that there are over 200 people on the streets right now that have been deemed incompetent to stand trial, so they were not charged with the criminal charges against them. They did not proceed in a court of law. Those charges were dropped, yet you let them go. Over 200 of those individuals, 200 potential Shaquille Taylors are on the streets of Nashville right now. Thanks to Glenn Funk and judges in this state. Because I do think you could take a different look at the laws that currently exist to determine what can be done to keep these people behind bars. Joe is in the borough, and Joe joins us next. Thank you for your patience, Joe. How are you?
Hey, no worries, Matt. I want to say, first of all, thank you for being the biggest Rottweiler in the neighborhood on a bone on this story, because people really need to be pissed off about this.
Yes, sir.
I live in Murfreesboro. I have a 23-year-old daughter who's living in Antioch right now in an apartment in Nashville. How do you think I feel about this?
Oh my goodness, I cannot imagine, Joe.
And to reference one of your previous callers, I'm a big proponent of gun control. I use both hands.
Amen. Amen.
But not to, and I want to make just a few quick points. I'm a history wonk. And you guys may know this, and I apologize, I can't quote the case name, but it was a Supreme Court case in 1975 that drastically reduced the government's ability to involuntarily commit mentally disturbed people to be constrained to a facility. I apologize, I can't remember the name of the case, but you've got, between Bell and Matt and the rest of the crew there, I know that some of our dear friend Uncle Phil Valentine's vast staff is still there. They can chase it down for you.
I got it. O'Connor versus Donaldson.
Thank you.
1975. Let me just educate the audience for those who don't know. 1975 landmark decision of the United States Supreme Court regarding mental health law, ruling that a state cannot constitutionally confine a non-dangerous individual who is capable of surviving safely in freedom by themselves or with the help of willing and responsible family members. The trial court jury found, upon ample evidence, the petitioner did so confine respondent. So, in other words, that you cannot. It changed the way that we can involuntarily commit individuals.
Correct.
And move the standard. Yeah.
Correct. And so what that did is it opened a floodgate for the pharmaceutical industry to start marketing everything. And do you know, I think you cover this, the United States is only one of 2 nations that allows drug companies to advertise. And so there's a pill for everything now, and they hawk it. So now you've got tons of people on psychotropic medications who have a tendency to cause more problems than they solve.
Well, it is a huge component to this story, and it's obviously a component to the Covenant School shooting story, the involvement of the pharmaceutical industry in as much as what drugs were they giving these individuals, and did those drugs bear some of the responsibility, at least, for the mental state of the individual committing the crimes.
And if that crazy woman who killed those 3 babies, one of those children was the niece of a very dear friend of mine here in Murfreesboro, why wasn't her name referred to the ATF here or the TBI, and why was she allowed to have guns?
Well, it's a great question.
You've got, and to borrow a phrase from a great song from Extreme, I don't know what's wrong, but Nashville needs to get the funk out.
I'll tell you what.
They need to start with the DA. And the other point I have, and then I'll let it go. If I was Jillian's parents, and this has shattered me as a father of a young lady who's living in Nashville, this has absolutely shattered me and my wife. That they don't let chumps come to Belmont. As a former musician, They don't let chumps go to Belmont. You're gifted. You're amazing. You're a genius if you get into Belmont. So that's what this girl, this beautiful young lady was.
And she deserved better.
Why don't her parents, they need to sue the living pants off Glenn Funk for prosecutorial misconduct. The same, they need to sue the judge who dismissed it for prosecutorial misconduct. We have sunshine laws in this state. Those 3 doctors need to have their medical license. They need to be sued for malpractice. They need to be incarcerated because this is criminal. And I'm trying not to get my blood pressure to eject my head through the roof of my truck. But I'm just as pissed off as you are. And this needs to stop. This needs to stop. I heard on Chris's show, or the beginning of your show, almost 7,000, 40% of the people who have been arrested in Nashville have been released.
Oh yeah, no,
what
that was
God's name is going on.
No, I'll give you. And for those who have not heard, and Joe, I love it. I appreciate the passion. Keep listening. Stay passionate. Protect that 23-year-old as best you can. I know. Well, I don't know because I don't have any kids, but I have enough people that have kids of that age. It is difficult to let the birds fly from the nest, and you have to trust that the education and the upbringing that they had is enough to protect them. But, yeah, 3,770 people have been released on bond, and 3,300 people who went through the pretrial release programs are on the streets. 40% of individuals who have been arrested in 2023, by the end of September 2023, 40% of the people arrested in Davidson County were on bond for other offenses or had some level of pretrial release status. In other words, they're being let out on bond and they commit further crimes. If you would strengthen the ability to keep them behind bars, you would better protect this community. This isn't hard. And all you hear from the district attorney is excuse after excuse. Well, Mr. Funk, if you want to come on and answer some of these questions, you're invited. I've had the DA on in the past. I didn't know a lot about him when I had him on, but I've learned. What was that? That was, January of 2022? I'd only been here a couple of months. And we had him on in the aftermath of the Waffle House trial verdict, as I recall. 121 Super Talk 99.7 WT and more of your calls on the way. I hope that a lot of this community is upset by this story, and it is a story that will stay on my radar until we get answers, either from the medical community, from the district attorney, from the judges involved here, or lawmakers. We've already talked to many of those. And we'll continue digging down to where the goats can graze on it on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You heard the man. Get the funk out. 126 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy Show continues. Thank you for being around this Thursday, November 16th, midweek, and kind of a midweek and a mid-month edition. Happy to take your telephone calls as well. Many of you wishing to comment on this. Where do we lay blame? Because there is plenty of blame to go around for the death of Jillian Ludwig, a story that I'm not going to let go of. We covered the political side of it comprehensively with visits twice from Cameron Sexton, once from Jack Johnson, talking about what, if anything, could have been done prior to. Many on the political left are suggesting that this is all about gun control because that's what they do without waiting for the details of the story. Oh, why did he have a gun? Well, apparently he had a gun because he had gotten a security gun illegally. And no one seems to know where that gun is now. My question, how in the world is Glenn Funk managing to keep him in jail? He was found. Are we saying that I guess my question is, are we saying that they were wrong the first time around? The doctors that analyzed Shaquille Taylor said that he was incompetent to stand trial. One would presume that that's still the case. If he was incompetent then, he's incompetent now.
Yeah, one of these cases is not functionally accurate.
Right. He's either competent now and was incompetent then, or he was competent then and is still competent now, or he's not competent. That's on one side of it. On the other side, he's either unable to distinguish right from wrong and a danger to himself and to others and should be in a mental health facility, or he isn't. All things being equal, and I know how this sounds when I say it, it's why I say it this way. Why aren't they letting Shaquille Taylor out of jail? And if they're not letting him out of jail, they owe the public the reasons why. They owe the public an apology for what they did last April. And I want that apology. I want it from the judge. I want it from the doctors. I want it from the DA. I want it from somebody. I want it because this city, and more directly, the Ludwig family deserves it. Let's see. I don't want to get in front of anybody. I think Rick is next out of Goodlettsville. Rick, thank you for your patience. God bless you, sir. You're up next on The Murphy Show.
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to welcome you to Nashville, although belatedly, both you and I moved here from Birmingham. I did it just a little sooner than you did, 25 years ago, but grew up there. And back in the day, we always heard about Bryce Middle Hospital down in Tuscaloosa. You know, if he's crazy enough that they won't put him in jail, he's off to Tuscaloosa. That was the common theme.
Yep, going to Bryce. That's right.
And we really, really need to bring that back, only this time here. Whatever it takes, we need to either put them in jail, build more jails, hold them as long as they need to be held, or lock them away for the rest of their lives if they're crazy that they can't tell that killing somebody is not a good thing.
That's a great comment, Rick. I mean, and you're absolutely correct. And you know, the 1975 ruling that we referenced makes it a little more difficult, but not a lot. You know, a finding, the overview of that case that was brought up by a previous caller, it was O'Connor versus Donaldson. And I was doing some reading during the break on this case, and it's intriguing. The case was an important one regarding the deinstitutionalization movement of the United States of America. And in the case, as I was reading it, Kenneth Donaldson, and by the way, I don't pretend, I had a basic rudimentary understanding of this case, but this is as much as I've ever delved into it, so I thought it might be interesting to you as well. Kenneth Donaldson was a confined patient, had been held for 15 years in the Florida State Hospital in Chattahoochee due to needs of, quote, care, maintenance, and treatment. He filed a lawsuit against the hospital and staff members claiming they had robbed him of his constitutional rights by confining him against his will. Donaldson won the case in the United States District Court, which was affirmed by the United States Court of Appeals, and in 1975, the United States Supreme Court agreed that Donaldson had been improperly confined but vacated the award of damages. On remand, the Fifth Circuit ordered a new trial on damages be held. A finding of mental illness alone, this is the upshot of the case. Finding someone mentally ill cannot in and of itself justify the state locking a person up against their will and keeping them locked up indefinitely in a custodial capacity. Assuming that the term can be given a reasonably precise content and that the mentally ill can be identified with reasonable accuracy, there is still no constitutional basis for confining such persons involuntarily if they are not a danger to anyone else or can live safely in freedom. I don't disagree with this, but I think what this created was a swing way to the other side of this, that we don't make the arguments that mentally ill people a subset of those mentally ill people can be a danger to themselves and to society, and those people need to be permanently or indefinitely confined. I don't disagree with the ruling that just because you're found to be, quote unquote, mentally ill, that's not enough to put you behind bars. I mean, if it were, Bell K would be in a spot of bother. Matt Murphy might be in a spot of bother. But old Murph and Bell, we're not a danger to others and not necessarily a danger to ourselves outside of our livers. I mean, if my liver had a mouth, it could talk. Maybe it could speak back. I've long said, and I'll say this for the benefit of Mac Morey, who's given me the eye, that as an aside, I live my life. I'm 50 years old. I live my life consistent with the belief that by the age of 65, science will be able to make me a liver. And if we have not advanced medical science to that point at that time, I am screwed. I am screwed. I am living based on that simple faith-based belief that by that time, they'll be able to suck some sort of stem cells out of me, make me a liver in a Petri dish, pop it all in, and we're off to the races again.
They can do that now.
I mean, I would think, right?
They can't. It's cost prohibitive. So you better be saving your nickels and your pennies.
Yeah.
So when the liver goes out, they can do the procedure.
I'm saving all my money for a little one in the Murphy household. A little bundle of joy, my new liver. It's 1:33 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk about your energy. Gentlemen, if you're feeling lower energy than usual, if you say, well, Murph, I've just not gotten enough sleep, or, there's things going on in my life keeping me up at night. Well, maybe if I told you that it could be something else, it might inspire you to contact the Tennessee Men's Clinic and schedule an appointment. Now, I understand that a lot of times when we talk about the Tennessee Men's Clinic, we naturally talk about bedroom activity. And that's because, some guys don't want to address it. Some guys try to avoid the issue. But that's not what I'm here to discuss. I'm here to discuss general energy levels, the willingness and ability to get out to the gym, the willingness and ability to go and do some yard work or to spend time with family without the need for a nap or whatever. If you're experiencing that, it could be a loss in T levels, and those T levels can get back up to where they were with simple treatments from the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Go to the TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for more information. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, or give them a call and schedule an appointment. They have 2 locations. One's in Midtown. The other's in Cool Springs. No excuses, men. Let's make that call and let's get back to that energy that we once enjoyed. With Tennessee Men's Clinic, 208-9090. 615-208-9090. Call today. Schedule an appointment. Tennessee Men's Clinic. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. I'm trying to hunch less, Belle. You need to help me in this regard. I see videos of myself on the TV side, Super Talk TV up and running, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. And I feel like I hunch over the microphone.
Move the camera up just a smidge. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Am I hunching less? Just note when I hunch. Right. We should have a hunch sounder.
So if I see you hunch, I just hit the sounder?
Yeah, just, whatever you want to hit.
I'll pull up Disney's Hunchback in Notre Dame and see if I can find something.
I was thinking maybe the would work. Like
no.
if you see no,
I don't want to dilute the use of that. That's for moments.
Don't hold on to the when you. I mean, we could easily. Thank you.
Isn't it amazing how close they sound to each other?
It's great.
Yeah, why does anybody listen to this show? I don't understand why anyone. I don't understand why anybody listens to this because I don't understand the same. Well, let me say it this way. I'm a little bit off. I mean, I've got some issues. So if you agree with me 100% of the time, I think you need to get some. But I don't understand, and I'm me, right? I'm the guy hosting the show. I don't understand the person that really wants to dive deep on mental evaluations in Nashville and Davidson County, and also doesn't mind sitting through.
Dan's probably wondering the same thing.
I bet he is. I mean, the only thing worse than the guy hosting this show is the guy that hired the guy hosting this show.
You're hunching.
I do. I hunched it. That's why I want to monitor in the studio.
Oh yeah.
Stick
one up there. Yeah.
The few times that I've done the show from home, I pop on Super Talk TV, and we don't have a monitor showing us on the television side of things. And some of our brethren in the building, I happen to know because I was on one of their shows earlier today, they do have that monitor going. And I think it would help us kind of, I bet You know, Brian Wilson knows TV. I guarantee you Wilson's got a monitor where he sees himself on camera.
Yes.
As he's there every day
100%.
in beautiful
He does.
Watertown. And I think we need that too, so that we can, present a little better. I don't think Mandis
He can not
wants
only
it.
see himself, he can see Chris, and he can see.
Right.
Yeah, you can see all of us.
He can see everybody. Yeah, we need that.
Yeah, that's
See,
true. That's a good point.
And an impediment to that solution, Dan Mandis, and I think it's because of his lack of hair. And there you go.
Right.
He doesn't want to look up at the monitor and see it.
We can put his toque on.
Should I get him one for the holidays?
He's got toques. He's worn them before.
Oh, I thought you said tube.
No. The hats that Bob and Doug McKenzie wear.
All right, I know we need to go to more important things. If I bought Mandis a bad toupee,
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
do you think he would agree to put it on for one photo? Could I convince him to do it for one?
Yeah, you probably could.
I think I could too. I'll agree to do something goofy on my person.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'll share the goofiness with him, and we'll take a photo, a Christmas photo.
You
of
shave
ourselves.
your head, and then he'll put the...
That's agreeable. I think that would be a good idea.
Maury, you're hunching.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Oh, I meant verbally. Lindsay is in pleasant shade. Back to a more serious conversation about Jillian Ludwig. What a tragedy. Lindsay, thank you for calling in.
Yeah, right before the serious conversation, I heard you were in possession of the magic marker with the mustache gate on Trump's photo.
I can, Lindsay, neither
Still a
confirm.
mustache on him.
I can neither confirm nor deny any participation in those sad and tragic events of days gone by. I cannot confirm nor deny any participation.
You need the cameras in there.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Well, anyway,
but on the advice of my attorneys, I've been advised not to comment on any of that, as there is still litigation pending. Mr. Hand is suing everybody as a result of all of that.
Well, on to other notes. Oh, and Mandis would never wear the toupee. I have two kids in college at MTSU. One is a freshman and one is a senior, and she has a music business major, oddly enough. And so this is just any parent's worst nightmare, and my heart goes out to that family. I think she had two little brothers, so this is just beyond tragic. Also, I blame the doctors. I completely blame the doctors and think they should be whatever can be done to them.
I am attempting.
I had a brother who was a harm to himself, and he should have been locked away, and the very medicine that they gave him when he reached out for help was directly involved in his death. And if he'd have been locked away, he might still be here today.
That gets me to the conversation about Dr. Jenny Matai. And thank you, Lindsay, for the telephone call. Psychological director at Tennessee Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disability. One of the doctors who evaluated Taylor. And she said in her January 5 report that he did not possess competence due to his intellectual disability and language impairment. Apparently, Dr. Matai spent 5 hours with Taylor during 5 separate sessions. She wrote in her report that Taylor did not process information, was confused at times, but she said he could be restored through competency training, which was subsequently carried out. According to the Tennessean, during those sessions, Matai said Taylor understood court personnel and what it meant to be guilty of a crime, but he struggled to retain, recall, and integrate any new information he was given. Dr. Matai concluded that Taylor was, quote, only minimally meets the requirement for foundation competency in her opinion. Dr. Michael Lofton, a forensic examiner for the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, also met with Taylor. After interviewing Taylor for 45 minutes, Lofton concluded Taylor did not show signs of increased risk of self-harm, had no suicidal ideations or plans pardon me, let me back up, had no suicidal ideations or plans, and repeatedly denied any homicidal ideations and found that Taylor did not meet the criteria for involuntarily committing him. Dr. Michael Lofton deserves to be questioned about this. He is not above reproach. He met with him for 45 minutes. These are the people that made the determination, folks. Dr. Mary Elizabeth Wood of Vanderbilt University's Medical Center and the forensic evaluation team also concluded Taylor was incompetent and did not meet standards for commitment to mental health hospitals. Wood previously told the Tennessean that in order to stand trial and face charges, a defendant must be able to understand the court process and assist counsel, which includes rational decision-making and the ability to systematically weigh alternatives. So they agreed that he could not stand trial, but also agreed to let him back out, knowing that the charges against him would be dropped. Were these doctors aware of the serious nature of the charges against him at the time that they interviewed him? I would assume they were. Did they not consider, I don't mean to be too hard on Dr. Wood or Dr. Lofton or Dr. Matai. I don't know these people. Maybe their hearts are in the right place. Maybe they made a horrible mistake. Maybe they are grieving. Maybe they are guilt-ridden over the decision that they made to let a man walk the streets who subsequently shot and killed someone. Maybe they are. But that does not immunize them from accountability. The system is broken, seemingly on a lot of different levels. And as much as I'm concerned about justice for Jillian Ludwig, I'm equally concerned when we are told by the district attorney's office that there are well in excess of 200 individuals that are walking the streets right now in Davidson County, presumably, that have the same circumstances behind their release. And it's time we demand our community do something about it. Because let me tell you something, folks. First and foremost, you want justice for those who have been aggrieved, justice for the Ludwig family, justice for our community that has to deal with the crime on a regular basis. But beyond that, I want to take it another step out. You know, we were talking with Mac Morey and Bell K last week when we were doing Friday Mac Attack about favorite movies, and I quoted The Right Stuff. And one of my favorite scenes in The Right Stuff is one of the astronauts asks one of the scientists, do you know what makes this bird go up? And he starts talking about, well, the lift propulsion. I mean, no. Funding. That's what makes this bird go up. Now, let me ask it this way. What makes Nashville go? What makes Nashville exist as Nashville exists? Money. Where does that money come from? How many of these stories happen before people say, you know, maybe we shouldn't tour Belmont. Maybe we shouldn't go to TSU with our youngster and see if that's the right fit for our youngster. Maybe we shouldn't go down to Broadway or the Ryman Auditorium. You hear about all that crime in Nashville? If you don't think that stories like this have an impact as to the perceptions of this community, I think you're fooling yourselves. Is that a secondary consideration? Sure it is. But it's an important one because I promise you this, if the tourism dollars go down, the political desire for that money to spend that money through government won't, and they'll get it from somewhere. They'll get it from somewhere. Hello, property tax increases. Hello, another bite at the income tax. Is this all possible down the road? Should sadly, Nashville go the way of some other major cities? I've never been to San Francisco. Now's the time to go, I'm told, because they cleaned up all the poop. Because, you know, chi. Joe Biden wouldn't be able to avoid stepping in the, you know. I mean, he did it anyway. Not literally, but figuratively. I don't know that I would go to San Francisco now. There are so many other places that I would want to go before San Francisco. Why? Because of the reality and ultimately the perception of the amount of crime and homelessness and drug use and robberies, particularly against tourists, that we read about on a daily basis. If that starts coming to Nashville, we got a problem above and beyond the death of Jillian Ludwig. But it's all interrelated. We better fix our DA problem. It's 51 after the hour. More calls on the way as we continue. It is The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. More of your calls coming up in mere moments. We have top of the hour news with Mac Morey in about a minute or so. Also, a story where the Representative Justin Jones, you remember Justin? He was one of the Bullhorn trio making a spectacle of themselves, eventually being expelled from the halls of the House of Representatives, only to be reinstated by eventually their constituencies. He apparently, Justin Jones apparently flew home with Andy Ogles. Have you seen this? They were on the same flight together. And he posted a video of himself standing outside of the plane on the little walk-up. And somebody in his party was videoing his interaction with Andy Ogles. I'll play that interaction. And I'm curious if he engaged Andy in conversation about policy on the plane or if he just wanted a quick hit piece. We'll discuss next on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 76 degrees, a sunny day on Music Row. Complete weather forecast just 2 minutes away. Right now in Tennessee, police searching for an armed suspect that may be inside of a building or a house in Nashville. This comes after a shooting in Antioch that happened yesterday morning near Tusculum Court and Old Tusculum Road. A Honda Accord was fired at multiple times. No injuries have been reported. Negotiators are also at the scene of the shooting. And the man who broke into former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home last year in San Francisco and attacked her husband has been convicted by a federal jury. Alex Stone reports from California.
Guilty on both counts, assault on an immediate family member of a federal official and attempted kidnapping. The jury also found DePape used a dangerous weapon, a hammer, in the attack. DePape showed no emotion in federal court as the verdict was read. His attorney put her hand on his shoulder to comfort him. He could get 50 years in prison when he's sentenced, and he also faces separate state charges. This week, DePape told the jury he broke into the Pelosi home after consuming right-wing podcasts and YouTube videos and had become angry over what he then thought were government and media lies.
And he said his goal was to hold and interrogate Nancy Pelosi about those lies. New York Republican Congressman George Santos says he will not seek re-election following a scathing House ethics report. Jay O'Brien.
He had long said that he was going to run for a second term until after this report was published, and he said he won't run for a second term. But he said he's staying in Congress, and that's notable because we're already hearing from a number of Republicans who are putting plans in the works to have another vote. Remember, one failed a few weeks back to expel Santos from the House of Representatives.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Freedom indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and germs. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, our final hour for this Thursday edition, November 16th. We'll speak with Brian Wilson later on in the hour about what is to come on the drive. Before we do that, we'll talk to you. If you're holding Julie, Phil, Larry, David, hang in there. A couple of lines available for you and you and you. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Thank you for being around. I want to pull the curtain back. You know, I know that every host on Super Talk 99.7 WTN does things a little differently, right? You know, Dan Mandis with Nashville's Morning News, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, Brian Wilson, even, you know, some others that you might hear from time to time in a fill-in capacity. And then beyond that, there are a lot of talk show hosts around the United States of America, and everybody does it a little differently. Well, just to give you a little insight into how we operate, I do believe that this is your show as much as it is my show, in as much as you need to be here along with me being here in order to accomplish the task at hand. I normally lead the proceedings down a variety of different topical paths, but at the same time, I can't promise you that I am 100% confident that I know when we crack the microphone open at 12:01 or 12:02 or whatever time it is in the early afternoon, that I know where the show is going. I don't. I hope it is a part of the charm of what we do on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and more particularly what I do in my portion of the day. So I was unsure when I was determined to revisit the Ludwig case, to make sure that we did not leave the Ludwig case, that we did not let this woman die in vain. I was unsure how you would react to it. After all, she's not from around here. You know, New Jersey person, New Jersey family, doesn't have roots in Nashville. After all, there are many murders in the city, sadly. After all, we have long known that Glenn Funk was soft on crime. But just as this case and the circumstances surrounding it and what it exposes about the failures of our local system, the failures of our local DA, the failures of the law or lack thereof, the failure of an ability to incarcerate or at least to psychiatrically evaluate long-term an individual to determine whether or not they are a danger to themselves or to other people. All of that exposure, it has lit a fire under me, and clearly it has under you as well. And it gives me hope, and I want to thank you. And so we have focused primarily on that. There are other matters to discuss on the show today, but I don't want to take up the time, especially considering how many of you have waited for a good amount of time to get on the air, like Phil in Smyrna. Phil, thank you for your call. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon, sir.
Oh, thank you, and great show, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm an old radio guy myself. Been in it for 20 years before I retired. And I'm one of those progressives that you talk about, but I love listening to both sides of everything. And you would not be surprised on how much we agree with, not so much disagree with. So gun control has nothing to do with this. But what I wanted to bring up is that you keep saying somebody's got to be held accountable, and I agree. But it all goes back to, why did this happen? Why is he out? Is it the laws that are weak? Is it the lawmakers that are, I don't know, being lobbying to be easier to get around? But I found this statistic I thought you might like, because I know you're a facts guy. As of October 10th of this year, over 950 guns have been stolen out of cars and trucks just in the Davidson County. In 2022, 1,087 guns were stolen from cars and trucks. So that's 2,000 guns on the streets since 2022 rather. I'm blaming people who do not take responsibility of locking up their guns properly. If you leave it in a car, a truck and you don't lock it up, you don't have a case for it, you don't even lock the truck, I'm putting you as just as responsible as the doctors and the lawmakers who made this happen. And I just wanted to know what your...
I haven't thought about this in this way, Phil, but here's what I would throw out for consumption. And once again, I haven't thought it fully out, and there may be ways that this doesn't work. But I would not be against. You mentioned, 950
guns as of October 10th, just this year.
All right.
And you heard it in Smyrna. They stole them right out of the police cars.
I would not be against this. And once again, someone could call in and explain from a legal perspective why this wouldn't work, and I'd be willing to listen to that. But just for you and I we're just jawing back and forth. What about make it a crime to knowingly leave your, like, if your gun is stolen out of your vehicle and it is determined that your vehicle was not properly secured, right? Like by admission or through, the chain of evidence, it's determined that your car was open, that there was no forced entry. I wouldn't, on first blush, I wouldn't have a problem if that gun is used in the commission of a crime, charging the individual that owned that gun with some form of misdemeanor.
See, amen. Progressives and conservatives can get along and do the right thing together.
Now, once again, I haven't fully thought it out, but would it not be akin to leaving your back gate open repeatedly with your dog that is known to bite people in the community, giving that dog the ability, you know what I mean? So, and I understand we don't have the right to dog ownership. We have the right to gun ownership. I'm not trying to deny anyone their gun ownership. I'm saying with that gun ownership.
I have several guns myself. My father and my grandfather and my brother are all law enforcement. And I was raised around guns. I know them properly. I was in the military. I was trained. I do believe in gun control, but only to the point of education. Some people just don't deserve to have AR-15s. They can work up to it. They can have any gun they want, but they have to, you're not allowed to drive a NASCAR on the streets because you haven't been trained in race cars. So I just believe that if we've got to start taking personal responsibility. And I don't think this guy should have never gotten out. The laws need to be changed because the DA can only do what the law allows him to, honestly. And the cops, same way. And even the hospitals, they have to go by the restrictions that are given to them. So it's got to come down to the core root, which is the laws themselves, the lawmakers.
Yeah, and I would, and I appreciate the call. I appreciate the sentiment, and it's a good conversation. It's an important one to have. I would note that I'm not a conservative. I'm a libertarian. I only note that because of the amount of people that regularly accuse me of not being a good conservative when I've never claimed to be a conservative. And it's a distinction with a difference, and which is why I bring it up. But be that as it may, libertarians even go, I think, further toward individual rights than in some arenas than conservatives. So I would have to think about this. I admit that I'm working through this in my head on the fly. I try not to compare gun ownership with the ownership of other things that can be used for harm because gun ownership comes with a constitutional right. Pet ownership doesn't. Now, I know that I just did it, but so there's a peril in trying to compare two things that aren't that comparable. However, I recognize that some gun owners are less responsible than others. And I understand that we have a gun education problem, as pointed out by 7662. I understand that we have a criminal problem. I understand we have a mindset problem. I understand all of those things are factors. I'm just spitballing and asking you if you're willing to consider some outside-of-the-box remedies to start repairing these issues that are plaguing our community. I am not suggesting that anyone be prevented from having the ability to protect themselves. In all cases. I am on record as telling you, and Belkay knows this. He probably knows me better than anyone at this radio station and almost anyone in Nashville. If you see me out and about, and this is not in any way I'm not saying anything other than a fact that if you see me out and about, odds are 90% of the time I'm going to be armed. Because that's the way that I choose to live my life. I do not want to die for a lack of shooting back. And I'm not going to, if I can help it. So this is not a guy that, is mealy-mouthed about the sanctity of the Second Amendment saying this. I'm just asking the question brought up by Phil. I think it's an interesting one. It's a legitimate one. Larry's in Clarksville next. Larry, thank you for your call, friend. How are you, sir?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course. Of course.
We've covered many subjects. Back before Tennessee passed the right for us to officially carry, I was in the midst of a shooting, okay? An ex-con who had killed a Memphis police officer and was let out after only serving about 10 years, was robbing a store at what used to be a mall there at, it was on an old road. I can't remember the name. And, the security officer chased after him. This guy turned around and he just started shooting wild.
Mm-hmm.
And we were at Luby's, which had all glass windows. The guy died right behind my truck. He was so high on something, and he emptied his gun, and it finally there was a female Metro police officer that hit him right between the eyes and stopped it. And I got interviewed by Don Aaron and all that stuff.
I'm sorry to speed you up, Larry, but I've got a lot of people that want to get on. What's the?
Well,
I'm appreciative of the story, but
yeah, but my point is with this. Please do not let this Jillian Ludwig story go away, because their family needs to sue Glenn Funk, who has funked up our legal system. They also need to sue the 3 doctors. And I want to know how many times these 3 same doctors have been used by the state or by Davidson County to let these people out.
Well, I think the city of Nashville, the district attorney's office, I would expect that there's going to be a lawsuit filed against the city in some form or fashion. Larry, thank you for the call. A lot of feedback into the conversation regarding gun ownership and the responsibility that comes with it. I believe that gun owners have a responsibility to secure their guns, to make sure that their guns don't fall into the hands. I'm not saying it should be a criminal offense. We just threw it on the table for conversation. And I admitted that I've not fully fleshed out this idea. It came to me in the form of a call. Although many of you are coming after me on the super text line, I understand that you don't want to criminalize necessarily where you don't have to, and I don't want to reevaluate the nature of the crime. Obviously, it's a crime to go into your vehicle and to steal your property. I understand that. The nature of gun ownership is quite unique, as is the responsibility of gun ownership. It goes above and beyond, I think, the responsibility of the ownership of anything else. Your rights come with certain responsibilities that we ought to consider to be just inert. But some don't. You don't, and I understand, and I've gone over I hesitate to make comparisons between gun ownership and the ownership of other types of things like a vehicle, because you don't necessarily have the right. You do have the right. I mean, I could extend that, though, and say that in modern America, you have the right to associate yourself with like-minded individuals, and part and parcel of that right is travel. So, I could probably make a case there, but that's beside the point. The question is there more that could or should be done regarding individuals who leave their guns in plain sight or in open vehicles? And I just think you're a horribly irresponsible gun owner if you leave your car unlocked and you leave your gun in your car. That does not diminish in any way the criminal activity that led to someone stealing your gun. And yes, of course, that should be the focus of prosecution. But if you're that irresponsible with gun, you're hurting everyone. You're hurting everyone. In the meantime, this happened. I promised that I would play it, and I will. We'll get back to your calls regarding gun control, gun ownership, and Jillian Ludwig in a moment. Apparently, Justin Jones, who is a representative in Nashville, sat next to Andy Ogles on a flight. I guess it was I don't know if it was a flight to or from Washington, D.C., Based on what Andy said to him, I think it might be to Washington, D.C., because Andy said something about enjoy the city. Justin Jones writes, sat next to Andy Ogles, who has pushed for a dangerous government shutdown. Our state and federal districts overlap, and his extremism harms our constituents. Andy and the Government Obstruction Party want to play politics with the livelihood of the working class Tennesseans. And then he shared this video, which I want to comment on after I play it. It's only about 18 seconds long. It's hard to hear. This is a group of individuals getting off the plane. Justin Jones obviously rushed off the plane so he could hand his phone to someone so that they could film him saying hello to Andy Ogles. Here's what it sounded like.
Keep up the good trouble.
Good to see you. Enjoy your visit.
Our constituents don't want the government shut down.
Hey, we've had
Don't shut the government down. It's the holidays. You got a fight for every day, Tennessee?
Can you hear what he says? He says, our constituents don't want a government shutdown. Now, he posted this last night at 8 o'clock. Did they not already have the CR had already passed?
Yeah, it passed yesterday afternoon.
Does Justin Jones not know his butt from a hole in the ground? Does he not know that it had already passed and there was not going to be a government shutdown?
Or he doesn't care.
Or he doesn't care. He just wants the clicks, baby. He just wants the clicks.
Hilarious thing is 99% of the people in this country don't even notice a government shutdown. This is why they have to get on Twitter and X and Facebook and talk about a government shutdown, because you wouldn't notice it otherwise.
No, with very few exceptions. One more time, here's Justin, playing the part, filming the interaction, claimed that he sat next to Andy. I want to speak to that in just a moment, but here's this.
See you, brother. Keep up the good trouble.
Good to see you. Enjoy your visit.
Our constituents don't want the government shut down.
Hey, we've had
Don't shut the government down.
I think you can hear Andy saying, we passed it. Yeah, Justin, our constituents don't want a government shutdown. And I think you can hear Andy saying, we passed it.
Our constituents don't want the government shut down.
Hey, we've had
Yeah, he says, we passed it.
Of course,
and then
Justin doesn't acknowledge that because
no,
the conversation isn't the point.
No, the clicks are the point. And that goes to my point. So he says, I sat next to Andy Ogles, who has pushed for a dangerous government shutdown. If you sat next to Andy Ogles on the flight, did you have a conversation with him about it? Did you engage in conversation with him about policy issues like a man? Or just wait to create a little viral video? Secondarily, if you sat next to Andy Ogles and you did not have a conversation about him, then what the hell are you doing? Thirdly, if you sat next to him and you engaged him in conversation attempting to get to consensus or some sort of policy agreement, how do you not know that they had already passed the CR? Or maybe you do know. You just don't care. You just don't mind lying. In the meantime, as I always do when we bring up Representative Justin Jones, I remind you that Justin Jones has been credibly accused of covering up 2 sexual assaults outside of the Tennessee State Capitol in the summer of 2020. And no investigative reporter will ask him about it in Nashville, Tennessee. None of them. Not Phil Williams, not Dennis, whatever his name is at Fox 17. None of them. When will the questions of Justin Jones be asked regarding his participation in the cover-up of a sexual assault in the summer of 2020, #MeToo. We just like to do that every time we bring up Brother Jones, who really cares about the females in his constituency. 225 on Super Talk. Hey, folks, Matt Murphy here for Efficient Heating and Cooling. Efficient Heating and Cooling is your one-stop shop for all things heating your home this winter into the holiday season and beyond. So let's talk about that, because Jeff Eddy wants you to know there's two things going on here. One, you are going to outlive, God willing, your heater. You just are, because you have a longer life cycle, thankfully, than your heater. And it can be hard to find someone that's just upfront and honest with you about where you stand with your heater in a way that you can trust them. And Jeff Eddy will do just that. I can tell you that when Jeff tells you it's time to replace your unit, he means it, and it is. I can also tell you if he believes he can get extended life, maybe a year or 2 or 3 out of an older unit, he'll tell you that as well. He understands that money matters in these scenarios, and he understands that replacing your heating unit should not be taken lightly. But when the time comes, they're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric. They're also an elite pro partner with Rheem. EfficientHVAC.net for more information. That's EfficientHVAC.net, or better yet, give them a call and schedule a maintenance appointment today. 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling.
The first body of a hostage has been found in Gaza, some crime in Tennessee, and hundreds of patients at a Massachusetts hospital. That and more. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. 29 after the hour as we roll through a Thursday edition of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. Some of the stories I've been unable to get to. President Joe Biden's meeting with the Chinese President Xi, not good. I mean, I don't know what happened. He doesn't know what happened either. I watched the press conference. It was unintelligible. we're dealing with do you think this president strikes fear in the heart of anybody? And the Chinese president came over here to basically tell the United States of America that they needed to back off, that the world's big enough for both of them. In the meantime, they fund the war in Russia more than any other entity. They fund the Iranians more than any other entity. They buy their oil, for goodness sake, do the Chinese. They're creating an axis of evil before our very eyes, and Joe Biden just fumbles and mumbles and bumbles his way through I think it was 4 questions. Oh, big buildup. Joe Biden's holding the press conference. Everybody get ready, buckle up. This is going to be a good one. Might be here an hour, might be here 2. It was like 20 minutes. 20 minutes of a bunch of nothing. And then he has cards, and, some suggest that he gets the questions in advance. That might be true. I don't know. Would not surprise me. He
doesn't seem to help much.
Well, he most certainly reads from those cards. He knows the nature of the question because they have written notes on those cards because he was reading from the cards. And also on those cards, the organization and the name of the White House correspondent of the organization. And last night, and I'm not going to bother you with the audio, last night he had the name of the CBS correspondent on his card, and he was, I don't, CBS, I'm sorry, I don't know who it is. And that was him not being able to read it. Not being able to read it. Not being able to read it. That's your president? That's scary, folks. Put partisan politics aside. That's frightening. The president of the United States had a card in front of him that had question 3, CBS News, White House correspondent. Also, this is a White House correspondent that's in front of him every day. He sees this person every day. And he couldn't remember their name. And he couldn't read their name from the card. That's why he goes, I forget who's next. It's CBS. CBS. Frightening. All right, Julie and Wayne and Steve and David and Nick, to you momentarily. I know you've been holding a long time. I'll get to your calls right after this. It's time for the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.232, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 76 degrees, a sunny day on Music Row. Full weather forecast in 2 minutes. IDF officials claim they have identified the body of a hostage they say was found inside the Gaza Strip during the IDF's ongoing ground operations. Patrick Reevil has the latest from Tel Aviv.
The IDF says they found the body of 65-year-old Judith Weiss close to the Al-Shifa hospital. They say that they found her in a structure, but they also found Hamas weapons, including RPGs. They say that her body was taken back to Israel and she was identified there. She's been kidnapped along with the other 239 hostages during the October 7th attack.
This is the first body of a hostage that has been found by the IDF, as far as we know. Hundreds of patients at a Massachusetts hospital may have been exposed to hepatitis and HIV. Dave Packer.
The potential exposures concern 450 patients at Massachusetts Salem Hospital, about 20 miles outside of Boston, during endoscopy procedures. Patients may have been exposed to hepatitis B and C and HIV. Salem Hospital says during those endoscopies, IV medications were administered, quote, in a manner not consistent with our best practice, and they've taken multiple corrective actions in response to this event. A spokesperson emphasizing that the risk of infection is small.
And in Tennessee, the Christmas tree that'll be used in the state capitol has been harvested. Christmas at the Capitol will have a tree that was planted decades ago. The tree comes from a home in Robertson County. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
All right, so November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. I don't know if you knew that lung cancer is still the number one cause of cancer death in the United States of America. It causes more deaths than breast, prostate, and colon cancers combined. That's why it's so important that you get checked. So important that you take my advice and go to Kraft Body Scan, get a CT scan done. For the month of November, Kraft Body Scan is offering a special. Now, normally this is about a $1,300 value. They are offering it for just $149. You and a spouse or a loved one, you come in and get scanned. It's an introductory offer to help you take full advantage of a full heart and lung chest CT scan. Takes just about 5 minutes. You don't have to take off your clothes. You got to get all, your metals out of your person, off your person. And other than that, it's fully clothed. The scan is read by a board-certified radiologist, and you get peace of mind today. Don't delay. Tell them that Matt Murphy sent you to Kraft Body Scan. Kraft Body Scan, spell Kraft with a C, craftbodyscan.com, or call for an appointment today. 615-436-1000. Do this. You'll thank me later. 615-436-1000 for Kraft Body Scan. Love listening to those hot licks on the Cars for Kids commercial. I also love...
I should have turned the camera on.
I should
have done it.
Safe House and everything that they do at Nashville Safe House. No, you shouldn't have turned the cameras on. I was jamming to the Cars for Kids commercial. I love that guitar solo in the middle of that thing. No, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the huge rebates going on right now at the Safe House. Combine those rebates with the fact that sales tax-free gun safes are back. And you've got a tremendous discount, in some cases over $1,000 in discounts at Safe House. It's no better time to purchase, and what a wonderful opportunity for the holidays. Ladies, let me tell you something. If you don't know what to get the fella in your life, I promise you this. If he has a gun safe, I want you to go and look inside of it. If he doesn't have a gun safe, this is an absolute no-brainer for the holidays. For Christmas, you can't put it under the tree, but you can put it beside there. And if he does have a gun safe, or if the family does, go and look inside when you have an opportunity. Is it full? I bet it's full. If it's full, you need a bigger one. The Safe House is still the largest Browning safe dealer in the United States and the world. The Safe House has the largest selection of safes in the Southeast, probably the world. They offer home delivery and installation with their award-winning Safe House delivery crew. Don't let a crackhead deliver your safe. And they're right across the street from City Cemetery, and you need to go see them today. Pick out a safe for you for the holiday season. There's no better time to do it. NashvilleSafeHouse.com or across the street on 4th Avenue South from City Cemetery. It's Nashville Safe House. All right, to your calls as promised momentarily. I should note that this nut job out in California got convicted. The David DePape, the suspect who has already admitted to striking Paul Pelosi in the head with a hammer after breaking into his house. He was found guilty of assault and kidnapping earlier today. A jury convicted DePape of attempted kidnapping of a federal official, assault on the immediate family member of a federal official with intent to retaliate against the official. Following the jury decision, the Pelosi family said they're very grateful. So there's that news coming out of California. Hey, Mac Morey, can I talk to you for a second?
Yes, sir.
I'm not here to criticize your newscast or anything.
But he's going to do it anyway.
Yeah, he's going to do it. Oh, you listened.
I do listen on occasion. I heard your story about, give me the deets on that Christmas tree story again. You said that we've got ourselves a Capitol Christmas tree. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right?
State Capitol.
And you said that they what'd they do?
Harvested.
Yeah, they killed the tree. That's what they did. They killed it. They killed it.
It's been harvested.
It's been killed. It's been killed. I demand that you report the news accurately. They killed this tree for our own amusement so that we can decorate it and dance around it.
Right now in Tennessee, the Christmas tree that'll be used in the state capitol has been slain to the ground.
Slaughtered.
Has been
slaughtered.
Has been slaughtered. Okay.
Is that more to your liking?
Making edits.
Yes, it is more to my liking. It reminded me, I used to give people the business when they would talk about hunting. And they talk about, well, yeah, we harvested that deer. You mean you killed the deer? You killed the deer.
We harvested.
Oh, we harvested. What do you mean you harvested? You didn't. You don't have a backhoe, or you don't have a bush hog out there. You're not cutting down the weeds. You killed the deer. You killed the tree. I'm against tree killing for the holidays. I don't like live trees. Go plant a tree. Don't kill a tree. And I'm not. Don't come at me. Don't.
They're already coming.
I feel them. I feel
It's
them.
happening.
Matt Murray, Mr. Environmental, Mr. You ever seen that video of the woman screaming and praying for the slain old growth trees?
Oh, gosh.
Have you never seen this?
No.
Oh, Bella, have you seen it?
No.
Where there's a group of people in a forest, and several of the trees have been cut down, killed. And she's like, we would like to apologize to the old growth trees.
Oh, God.
Oh, if you've never seen it,
I'm sure they appreciated the apology.
do yourself a favor and look it up. It is delicious. Anyway, we killed the tree for our own personal amusement during the holiday season. Julie is next in Nashville. I'm going to get through as many of these as I can because so many of you have been so patient. I appreciate your patience, Julie. Good afternoon. How are you?
I have to take this. Hi. Hey, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I definitely enjoy your show tremendously.
Thank you.
I just had a quick statement about this. Yeah, we're not going to let this go. And the way, unfortunately, in the world, this country, the way that you get things done, unfortunately, is to slap a multi-millions, $100, $200 million lawsuit against the city, the therapists, the family of, not the family, but the people involved, the city, everybody that was involved with failing to keep this man and thousands of others that are running our streets right now. And you're right, if we don't do this and get control of this now, then we are going to become that city. We are going to become the Los Angeles. We are going to become San Francisco. And really the way to, the loud and clear, and I hope the parents are listening or anybody that knows them, is to bring a lawsuit amount that is huge. That will speak volumes. Unfortunately, that's the only way we ever get change and we get people to wake up, is when they are hit with a lawsuit that is so large that the whole world is going to be watching. And that is how we will get change. Not talking behind doors and legislation and this one meeting with that one. This is the only way that this is going to be able to change things, is hit them so hard, and it will get their attention and it will change things.
Well,
and people all around the world will know that Nashville cares.
I think it's very well spoken. I'm glad that you said it, Julie. Thank you so much for the call. You're right on target. I think we need to do it in Nashville. I think it needs to be done in Memphis to make sure that people understand that Tennessee doesn't play like that. You know, we had leftist Canoe on the show earlier in the week with the Tennessee Holler. And he wanted to point to some of the poverty statistics and crime statistics in the state of Tennessee. And all of those are elevated exponentially because of two cities, Nashville and Memphis. Run by, wait for it, leftists. Did you see the story, by the way, about the FedEx truck in Memphis over the weekend?
No.
53-foot, like a big FedEx truck, tractor trailer, was stopped at a red light in Memphis, and it got ransacked at a red light. A group of thieves, a group of more than 40 people, looted a FedEx truck while it was stopped at a red light in Memphis. About 8:30 at night, Saturday night, 53-foot trailer sat in traffic at the intersection of Riverport Road and West Mallory Avenue. The driver reported the theft. Memphis police arrived, saw vehicles speeding away recklessly with a number of boxes thrown across the road. The truck driver told police cars blocked the intersection just before a group of men broke open the sealed back door and looted his trailer. There's video of this. 3 men have since been detained, almost $10,000 in damages, and numerous stolen items unaccounted for. This is in Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, that's obviously very pre-planned.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you don't go after the small stuff and do something about the small stuff. The small stuff becomes big stuff. Wayne is next up as we try to get to as many as possible. Wayne, thank you for your call. Good afternoon, sir.
How you doing? Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
It's good talking to a local Georgia person, as I'm from Georgia myself.
Go Dogs.
Definitely. You know, the best gun control is whole gun bull crap. Blaming the gun for this, blaming the gun for that. Why don't we turn around and blame the cars for drunk drivers? Why don't we turn around and blame the pens for writing the daggum threatening letter? It takes a person to pull the damn trigger. Pardon my French. So instead of blaming guns, let's blame the person that pulls the trigger. Let's hold them accountable. And with all these people that want to leave their guns in their car, whether you lock your car or you don't lock your car, yes, you need to be held accountable if your gun gets used in a robbery, a killing, whatever, because you were dumb enough not to take your gun in the house and lock it up where it should be. No, we're just going to leave it in the daggum car. This whole gun thing of banning this gun, banning that, and the dude that talked about we need to go through a class to use an AR-15. Kiss my royal country butt. I'm sorry, but if you know how to use a gun and use it properly for what it is to be used for, there's no problem. But you want to go out there and kill somebody, hold somebody at robbery at gunpoint with any kind of gun. It don't matter if it's a rake and you hit somebody with it. It turns into an assault weapon.
Blame the person, not the object. But at the same time, I'm just exploring, and thank you, Wayne, for the call. I'm exploring the possibility of maybe doing more with regard to people who regularly leave their guns unlocked in their vehicles. I carry my gun in my vehicle all the time, but I do what is necessary to make sure it's secure prior to leaving the vehicle because I understand the nature of criminals. I'm sitting up straight. That's not a good one. That's not good. You need to do better.
You are absolutely hunched over.
I'm kind of
He is hunched.
I'm a little hunched. Thank you. Thank you for having my back. You're doing what I'm asking you to do. Steve is next in the borough real quick. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Hey, brother. Hey, look here, man. I got three points to make, and then I'll get off here and let you talk it out. Look here, man. I think everybody ought to have to have a gun permit, but I also think that they ought to have each gun they own registered to sell it, so that whenever they go buy ammo, they have to present that card, and if they don't have that card showing that they own the caliber of ammo that they're trying to buy for the gun, then they wouldn't even be able to buy ammo. And yeah, they're out here stealing guns, but it could reduce some of it if they weren't allowed to even buy the ammo for it without showing the registration for that gun. And I'll get off here and let you talk.
Thank you very much. I am against a gun registration in any form or fashion because the government will use that at some point down the road against us. But I appreciate the thought. David is next. Final call for today. David, thank you for your call. Thank you for your patience. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. Happy Friday Eve.
Easy. You know a puppy just died. Oh, because of you. Everybody, puppy died. David killed a puppy.
I'm sorry there, bro. I agree with you. If you've got a gun in your vehicle and you don't lock it up, it gets stolen. You need to be held accountable at some point or some fashion. The doctors that said this guy couldn't stand trial, I'm going to say it's not the first one that they've done like that. I'm going to say they don't feel any remorse about what they've done. If you look and see who they vote for, we'll say it's probably going to be the left.
Yeah.
And as far as the middle goes, if people knew, I used to date a girl a few years ago. She went to people in neighborhoods. Your neighborhood, my neighborhood. There are some seriously sick individuals that are being housed in neighborhoods. And when I say sick, she had one guy, I didn't want her going over her. He tried to kill himself with an ink pen.
Oh, my God.
Jamming it in his...
Ink pen? David,
in his belly.
No. David, I have so many questions, but I'm out of time. I'm simply out of time. I need to get with Brian Wilson in a minute of the drive to find out what's going on his show. So I apologize for rushing you. Thank you for the call. It's 52 after the hour on Super Talk. I am being viciously attacked for being a Scrooge because I insist that McMaury engage in accuracy in reporting. More coming up. It's 58 after the hour. Brian Wilson is with us with The Drive. He's coming up in just a few moments. Hey, Brian.
Listen, I'm with you on the tree. I mean, look, Christmas trees that you get down at the Christmas tree lot are a crop. They are grown for that purpose. But I've never really liked the idea of the national Christmas tree or the national Christmas tree, I think, is the one down in front of the White House. But Capitol Hill goes out and slays one of these magnificent trees from the forest.
Slaughters a tree.
Yeah, and brings it. And I'm saying that's not the best purpose for that tree. Its better purpose, its higher purpose would be to remain in the forest, especially when they go out and they find the biggest, the most, amazing tree. I want to see that tree in nature, not, turned into mulch at the end of the holidays after Capitol Hill gets through using it. And I sort of hate that. Different thing if you're going to get a tree from a Christmas tree lot. Those clearly are. Well, they're like tomatoes. They're like apples. They're a crop.
Grown for a price. No, you're such a voice of sometimes, Brian, I'm out there in the hinterland and I'm thinking, am I insane? And then here you come and say, no, Murphy, you got your head on straight on this issue.
And I did that story one time when I was at Fox when they brought in the Capitol Christmas tree. And I was amazed at how angry people got. What a Scrooge you are. But I stand by my position. I believe I'm right.
Well, I stand by this. My time is up, and Brian Wilson's is here, and that means that The Drive is right around the corner. Right after McMaury does his newscast, you've got 4 full hours of Mr. Wilson, and I encourage you to avail yourself of every single one of them. Please do so, and we'll be back tomorrow for a Friday edition of the Matt Murphy Show. Happy to present that to you. That starts at high noon. Until then, enjoy, Brian. Have a wonderful afternoon. Hug your loved ones. So long, folks.